I know that we started late, and I was the one who was late than anybody else. I arrived this evening from Eastern Cape. I'd gone to a funeral of a colleague and a friend, and I then tried to find a lift to take me quicker to her. But it was difficult for me to do so. So I got the big trees and the leaves, and I started. I just took a chance. I ran in the road of the plains. The road of the plains very short, and I ran in the woo, and I landed in that area. So I'm just apologizing that I came late and delayed everyone because it is now the morning.
Commander, morning. Commander, morning.
I'd really like to recognize the leadership of Mkhonto Sizwe, who are here with us, and leaders from provinces and regions, and also our membership that is here, as well as friends and supporters of Mkhonto Sizwe. This is a very powerful organization established for very clear purposes, and also trying to address the difficulties of our country, which has been with us for many years. We reached a point when we thought we were almost arriving, but unfortunately, some of our citizens decided to stop the movement forward. Not just stop it, but put the reverse gear backwards. And that meant that we might get back to a very troubling period. And I think it was important that we tried to change the gear forward and move to cross the flooded river so that we can be on the safe side and live our lives as we all wish to. So thank you very much for you to stay that long. I've been told that tomorrow Mkhonto Sizwe is going to be making some indications of what we believe this country must do to itself. I'm sure quite a handful of things have been said since the coming into being of Mkhonto Sizwe. And I believe, as all parties are doing, tomorrow there is a document they always say, I don't know what it is called. People's mandate. Yes. Thank you. Thank you to tell me that. So we'll be tomorrow.
Today. Morning.
No, wait, let me correct you guys. As far as I know, when the sun sets, it is at night. It is called a night. I've never heard it being called a tomorrow. When it is at night, it is at night. And you sleep. Unless you are a witch. Because only those people wake up whilst we are sleeping to be doing funny stuff out there. So it will be tomorrow. Because tomorrow only comes when the sun rises. Do you disagree with me? So don't correct me. What I'm talking about is science, scientific. I'm saying tomorrow we'll be doing what you just told me we have to do. To listen to what the people are saying, having made them to listen to us. Because we did raise some issues that we believed that the issues to be addressed by us as citizens of this country. That I think many parties have done their best to tell us what they think, if at all they won the elections, what will they do? Some have been repeating this for almost 30 years.
Okay.
But there has been no visible implementation of what the political parties have been saying over the period. If anything, there were some activities that did not seem to be moving forward, that in fact were putting others under very difficult positions. Mkondo Wesizwe has just arrived. He's the youngest party of all. Why was Mkondo Wesizwe established? I'm sure some of us who are no longer that young, we were around when we thought South Africa was not helping its citizens. It was very, very much separating us as citizens of this country. And this was going to continue for a long time. And that's why we then thought it was important to talk. And there was a long period of talking, but there was no engagement. Finally, an organization that many of you now here call it a go-go. Because I've heard was outlawed precisely because a part of the South Africans who were specifically referred to as whites were not prepared that we can meet and talk and solve our problems. And when that
Sitting at 1.3, let's go to 1.5.
attempt to engage was not being met, then the ones in government at the time then said this organization was problematic, it was communistic, and therefore it must be outlawed or banned. That was, in other words, an attempt to say, keep quiet, just remain with this status quo. That brought another chapter wherein those who were saying, but we are oppressed, how could we? Started saying and declaring that we are going to fight. And then the wars began, which lasted for quite a number of years.
Guys, my battery is
Until
dying.
circumstances
I'm at a problem again. If it's
made it possible
50%,
that everybody should
TikTok
accept
runs
the
more
reality
battery than the
that
battery
we
charge.
must
So
talk.
left it. It's charging.
The pressure from the world, but other developments that were making it impossible
But I'm left with 2%. I think I'm
for the country to remain for a long time under those circumstances. But there was also a very big pressure from the Western countries. And they tabulated when they were discussing with the government what were the reasons why they were no longer going to defend them to fight a war in South Africa. That in fact, the question of talking and negotiating was a matter of must. And they said to the government, you cannot survive for 2 decades. If you thought you were armed, you can fight, you can do everything, rest assured, in a decade you'll be defeated. And once you'll be defeated, as a white community, you will have no participation in the government when you are defeated, because you would have lost.
Guys is watching from Argentina.
And if that happens, this important country
I am charging, guys. I am charging.
will be in the hands of the
Once my phone
communists.
is below 50%, e-app it runs more.
And therefore, we are not going to allow
than the
you
battery.
to make this country to become the home of the communists. And therefore, you have to negotiate. There is no alternative. That's what the Western countries put together said to the then South Africa, which was described as the apartheid. There was no alternative for the South African government but to give in, where they said we are not going to be with you, but we are not also going to allow you, because this country is so important for a variety of things. And if you say we must allow you to give you the communists, then you're making a mistake. That's what turned the who are a little bit older will remember that out of nowhere, P.W. Botha, who was then the president of this country, addressed the white community in South Africa. It was a surprising address. He was addressing them. And he said, we as the white South Africans must accept the reality that the world is changing. And we cannot remain not changing. We have changed, we as whites. And after a long speech, he made one very outstanding point. He said, we as whites in South Africa are faced with two choices only: to adapt or die. I'm sure those who were born will remember the statement. That statement was a very serious statement which many did not realize why P.W. Botha made the statement, because at that time, the Western countries were saying we can no longer help you with anything that we've been helping you about, because you are going to be defeated. There are details. Maybe when we have time to write, we will write as to what actually had happened, why the Western countries had to take that decision. And therefore, South Africa had no alternative to accept that there should be negotiations in South Africa.
But bring the power.
But that was the agreement of South Africa, the ruling party then, and the Western countries. Well, it was very clear there was no other way. One of the reasons why this was visible, even in the government at the time, and some of you who might have been there will recall that out of nowhere, the Cubans helping the Angolan soldiers had surrounded a very huge force of South Africa that was fighting inside the Angolan territory. And those soldiers were faced with by one thing and one thing only: either to surrender or to be killed. And that's what started the real debate, that you cannot allow this to happen. Because what had been said by the Western countries, they then said to the government, here we told you that is a matter of a decade to be defeated. For the first time, very powerful South African force was surrounded in Angola.
Sorry, guys.
That started the process of negotiations with Namibia, then South Africa. The rest is history. Now, if we live in a country of that nature, so important, which had people who were saying, by law. And this is just what the organization then was asking for. Let us also have time to vote, please, so that we can because some of the citizens were saying no, that led to war. Many people were killed, others spending a lot of years in prison. I'm sure, for an example, you will remember that the group of leaders, which were called the Rivonia, a group, except Mandela was spent 26, because he was arrested before the others in 1962. This is the story of this country. It's a story of a country that is rich, that has the combination of different kind of people in one country, a very strategic country indeed. Now we had to reach a point where we had to arrest one another, kill one another, and do every other thing. It was what I said we could talk about on different occasions. It was because of the circumstances in particular Southern Africa that had been forced to talk. Fortunately, I was already a big man, not a young man, when that happened. For some strange reason, the National Executive Committee was sent me to lead a delegation of 3 to come start what was called I've been either Mozambique or Zimbabwe over the weekend, and when I arrived, the phones at the time, I went to the office of the Secretary General, Alfred Zo, to phone the colleagues I was who were working under my authority in England. And I was telling them, I'm coming there on Wednesday, please arrange blah, 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 talking with some little codes a little bit. So when I finished, my secretary said to me, sorry for it, we are not going to England on Wednesday. On Wednesday, you are flying to South. What I was saying, at Matthew, because of the job I'd been given by the ANC, I was one of he took half a bottle without getting drunk. And I said to myself, this is serious. The man is drinking, is not getting drunk. I'm afraid that we are now going to the enemy territory. And indeed we arrived. I was told, so and so will meet you at the town. So I went out first, and he was standing next to a kumbi, and he was a gentleman I knew I had met once. He was with another one. I was with Kalumbi. As I came to the kumbi, he said, where are others? I said, well, they are coming. And he laughed. He said, maybe they want to run back. Unfortunately, this plane is not going back. They've got to come down. And they did. And that was the beginning of talks about talks. One day we tell the story because some politicians love saying there was a sellout. I think it's a failure to understand wars that are not exactly the same. Some are defeated, some are negotiated. Negotiations did not mean we've reached the final point. It meant that we should now agree to talk and discuss our conflicts, but also be in a position to look at what is going to be said, because negotiations by nature is a question of give and take. You scrutinize what the opposition is saying, you also respond in your own way. You agree, you disagree. At one point, you want the other side to give in. So now that you can also give in something. So it doesn't mean in the negotiations then you are totally free. It's a freedom that is being shared by two sides agreeing. And with us, we then agreed, because our country's complex is not easy, that we'll have what is called, when we finish everything, a government of national unity. That tells you the story that we've been fighting since the time immemorial. We now wanted to learn how to work together, how to run one country, how not to have oppositions in the first 5 years. And one day, we'll talk about how much that, in fact, is so unfair to the country. Because you separate people into small pieces. They almost believe they think differently. Because if you take the political parties in South Africa today and just compare their political utterances about how South Africa should be, they actually say nothing. There are few political parties who have things to put across. Some, even if they are not honest to their own views. But the majority, in fact, if you want to know, those who are in these small parties, they are actually finding Parliament as a place of getting employment. Because if you are there, if I'm a leader, I fight that I must go in with 1 or 2. Then I'm safe, I'm earning every month. That becomes the issue. The rest of the membership, which cannot go to Parliament, they'll continue starving, being in terrible situations. We don't even see that. Many countries, and that's what must happen in South Africa, have covered about in the main 2 parties that contest. If there was a third one, it's a small little one, no problem. Because you can't have everybody going to Parliament. Even if you wanted everybody, it's not going to help you. You are actually disrupting your country. End of the story. And you will suffer for years to come. That is why the thinking had to be very clear. What is it that we are trying to do that led us to be here today? We must be able to deliver a message to South Africans that all of them will agree with. And I think this is what Umkhonto has done. This is what Umkhonto has done. In the process of going up and down, talking to our people about what is wrong in the country, which need to be fixed. Some people may not like it because they are maybe benefiting out of it, but it leaves a bitter taste to the country. It's not helpful, therefore. I had an opportunity through my friend, one who was seen with a big baraton. Because he's correct, he did come to Ghana. And he's a very religious man. And said God talked to him that he must come to see me. And from that day, we discussed all serious and difficult issues. And he is a man who stands for his voice. As he was saying, some of the, particularly the Afrikaners, think that he's a useless man. And yet he's a man who's making a contribution for South Africa, for all of us, black and white. Once people heard that he's a friend with Zuma, they said, Yaro, as DNA Buddha. Huh? But he stands, as you heard him talking here. He then organized, and it was the first time I addressed the white. I think they were almost as big as this sitting here in Pretoria. Because he felt they needed us to meet and talk. And unfortunately, I'm very honest, some politicians don't love me because of that. I say what I say because I believe in the truth. I don't believe in telling a lie. There was one issue, I might not have made it as sharp, was one issue is, in South Africa, there are different whites. They are British, they're French, they're whatever you call them. But there is one grouping of Afrikaners. And Afrikaners, you cannot find them anywhere in the world. There's no Afrikaner unless that Afrikaner comes from South Africa. That group of whites was manufactured in South Africa. It only belongs in South Africa. And the reality is that if one day, whites said, no, we leave this South Africa now, because we are no longer in charge, blah, blah, blah. They will all leave, French, Dutch, or whatever. The Afrikaners will never. Because if they left, they will say, where are they going? Well, they've got no home anyway. Their home is South Africa. That is why it is absolutely important that when we think about South Africa, we think scientifically, not just what we wish, what we think we can be. Because all of us, if you talk about South Africa today, you cannot say there are no whites who are here and they will be here from time immemorial or whatever. Because they were made here. Afrikaners. When they fought with the British from the Cape, they went into the country and got into a place, wonderful. Like, look at this place, what a wonderful place. They said, this is our country now. Free State. Orange Free State. And they sat there. Others said, we are going forward. They went and found it bigger than that one. Transfer. And they sat there. They've been there, they cannot, they left. They've left the English. They call them, what is the name they call them? Mabetugana. They can swear at each other. The English and the African. The Greek, Royneck, that's right. They call them Royneck. That's why we ended up with 4 republics, because the British were blocking them from the sea. They realized they were going down to KZN, they went there, stopped them as well. Because they thought, if we stop them, they will all bring their things here, what they will move from our harbors. But because they did not know they were sitting on top of wealth, when they are shining stones here. Now instead of keeping quiet, they told the British we've got Danu, we've got Yago. The British said, what? The Afrikaner. That's what led into the Anglo-Boer War. They were defending their places. They are not getting into the details. And the British being British, very, very something out of this world. Finally, took over everything, water, resources, and everything. And they stay here. Even the Cape Town, which they used to be, they left it. They can now go there as the refugees. The point I'm making is that we need to be realistic as human beings, to find ways and means of solving our problems. There is no problem that must be making us to be afraid to resolve, because it will remain, one day it will be the biggest problem. And that's why this time around, as I say, when I spoke to the Afrikaners, I made some of these points to say, we have no alternative. We've got to come back to reality and have a South Africa democratic, as we say, it has to be democratic, and accept where there are over things that are difficult to deal with, but find a way to deal with. Because without dealing with a problem, it is just like if you've got a sickness. If you don't cure it, it's going to kill you. But if you cure it, you will remain for many years to come. It's a fact. Today we are here in this gala dinner, preparing for Mkondo Wesizwe to say something tomorrow to the nation. And I'm sure we are not going to be saying things that are beyond anybody. We are going to be talking about what we've been talking about. The need that this country must be a country of every citizen. We must be together, we must work together. This is a country that will make us to be what we are. Part of the reason Mkondo Wesizwe is talking about a number of things. And one of them, and I must repeat this, one of them is our brothers and sisters who came here emphasized their own cultures over our cultures. And yet these cultures ought to have moved together. That takes a number of things, and one of them is what I've been saying, the laws of this country. For an example, the Roman Dutch law is the key law or laws in South Africa. Now we could mix that. We could not take everything which is African and replace it with the Roman Dutch law. And I've been given details how at times this clash. And you can't force one to the other. We've got to discuss. You might need very good laws that are Roman, very good laws that are Dutch, but you can't say an African then has nothing which is African law. It's just a clean fact that we need to deal with. For example, our culture, if you're a man, and you become the traditional leader, your child will become your traditional leader when you die. That's the African law. If you are a man, you don't give birth to a boy, you give birth to a woman, then your brother who gives the boy will then take over. Right? That's African law. The Roman Dutch law, if you don't get a boy, you only have girls. Then one of the girls, the elder one, will become the traditional leader. Right? Let us say you are a Zuma. You give birth to your daughter, a Zuma. And then she grows up, she must get married. And she must become the chief here. But once she marries, she is now the property, not Zuma. Do you see the contradiction? Now, which means, if now that daughter of mine becomes the chief, what happens? She must now go to Mkize with my... You see the point? Because she has children, she's going to give birth to Mkize, a young fellow Mkize. It's not longer Zuma. So of course Father Zuma is gone. That's with the Roman Dutch law. We've never debated it to see whether this is true or not. I'm just making an example to say why we need to sit back and relook at what we are doing. And in my view, this is the first in the history of South Africa that we have got the biggest majority agreeing, this time including our brothers and sisters who are white, agreeing that things will change. And I'm convinced we're going to win. Yes. But given how corrupt governments these days are, anything can happen as well. Anything can happen. Because I became responsible in bringing about Mkondo Esizwe, the government and the institution that is supposed to be so partial, so good, so clean, so balanced. It decided to come just to single me out of all the people, long before even the elections. Zuma must not appear in the ballot box. It's not their job. They're not policing. They did not even know whether I want to be the president of the country or I'm going to remain the president of the party. Well, there's nothing that stopped me being the president of the party. That tells you the bias that you have. And the law people, even the ones who hate me, this time around said, no, please, this is too much. But they took it to the they know will always find something wrong with me. Now that is not fair. That does not make people feel good about it. I'm just telling you how much people play around with this law, which is not necessary to do. In any case, today, I'm saying the kind of thing that I've said because I want to give us some background why we are here. For me, it is a very serious matter. We need peace in South Africa. We need all of us to feel good in our country. We need to be treated the same. And this is what we are looking for. And I believe we are at a point of doing it. It is equally important that those who are suffering, we must find ways of taking them out of trouble as citizens of this country. And I'm sure we're going to do it. There will never be war in South Africa. There's going to be talking, negotiations, agreeing with the policies, even reducing these many political small little groups. I will tell you one day why, in fact, they've been mushroomed. Because there are reasons even then. You will find a man who had no penny like me, with no penny. But once he forms a party, he has all the money to run. Where is the money coming from? He has no factory, he's not working, but he has the money. He's been given the money by some people, not for good reasons. I would be so happy to have South Africans who are good, who are people, who are men of God.
Amen.
Who are everything. You can hear what God says. Always tells the truth. That's why I like particularly the bishops. So tomorrow we will be meeting. We are bringing our own numbers. We did not necessarily want to go to big stadiums and fill them up. Well, there are many parties that have done so, but have not won the elections. Going there to fill up the thing does not necessarily mean we are going to win. But what we are saying, because the history of this country is important. Orlando, as a township in Johannesburg, had two leaders of the ANC. Walter Sisulu, Nelson Mandela, is reacting to the decision of the government which banned the ANC. The debate was, what do we do? There were experiences of people from Southern Africa who came to study in South Africa. Some of them, Abonkomo, Omgabe, and many others. They were influenced politically in South Africa. And there was this organization that was the only one in the continent, ANC. And when they went back to their homes, they also took the name. So there was an ANC in Rhodesia. And there was an ANC quite a number of places. And the British there felt they are now bringing a wrong teachings. So they banned the ANCs in these neighboring countries. So Joshua Nkomo then established his party, new party, changed the name, ZAP, Zimbabwean Political something. So when the ANC was banned, the debate was, we cannot name our organization through another name, because whether you do it, it's going to be the same. They will ban that organization again. There was an experience in Zimbabwe. The thinking was, this organization must stand on its name. So the leadership decided to go underground, to operate secretly, and actually said it in public. ANC is going to go underground, operate from underground, peacefully fighting for the independence of the black people. And the question was, what then must we do? And there was a growing view from a big debate. Mandela, Sisulu said, Diba, you will lead the discussion. And Mandela was taken like pillar to post and attacked by one of the biggest communists. Who was the name of this man? Moses Kotane. He said, this is childish. This is going to make people to die for sweet nothing. He crushed it. Umandela waphuma emayowana lapha edabukile with manje sehlulekile. Sisulu said, Madiba, we missed the point. We should have briefed Moses Kotane first. I know him. If you sit down with him, we'll understand. He said, make an arrangement to come for a cup of tea in his home in oldest township in Johannesburg. Alexander, that's correct. And he sat with him and convinced him. And the question then finally said, Dib, I now agree. Raise the matter again in the National Executive Committee. And the issue was raised. To the surprise of everybody, as including the president, then Lutu. Kotane was the first to support Madiba. When they left last meeting, he was the first to attack him. This time was the first. And there was a debate until the ANC agreed that this time has come. But they said that we can't do it alone as an ANC. We need the alliance. The alliance at the time was, the leader was the ANC, South African Indian Congress, Colored People's Congress, Congress of Democrats, which were the organization of the whites, and such. These were there because all these were not allowed to belong to one political party or one organization because of apartheid. So they had to have these organizations in order to allow themselves to meet only as different organizations. And they discussed this matter and finally agreed. And at the end, the issue was, we cannot call this organization the ANC. What are we going to call it? And the president led a discussion about how we fight our wars and what principles do we follow. But if at all the discussion, the fight makes one man to retreat, saying sorry, you can't follow him to his house. If you do, they've got only one weapon to use, Mkondo. And he said, the difference this time is that we are taking Mkondo as a nation to fight because we're being forced to do so. And he said that the name of this organization, the Mkondo, was Sisu. It's a historic matter. If at all you want to solve the problems of this country, you can't be using all the names. I know you guys love the democratic something, democratic. No, those democratic things are seven root. There's no democracy here. No, it's true. There's no democracy. You know, you only exercise democracy 1 in 5 years when we vote for the country. From then to the last, only a small little group in parliament takes decisions which you don't even know about it. They don't even consult you. That's a fact. It's just a name that is democracy. That's why you couldn't call this serious matter a democratic or democracy or whatever. You better you take something you know that it will help us to pave our way to real democracy. Umkhonto wesizwe. Umkhonto wesizwe has in fact succeeded in the main to unite all of us. We are not yet all together, but we'll come together. We will come together. One of the things we are going to do after winning these elections is to remove crooks in politics. Asizukuba nabo abantu abati bechene abantu who, after telling people who are going to look after your interest, take care of you, and then come steal the money of the people and make themselves rich. And you think those are honest people. We must get rid of that. We can't have a country that is now known as a country that has everything. I mean, there are many things. All countries in Africa, everywhere. You can't walk in there and stay and even buy property when we've got not even a small little paper which tells you who you are. Some areas are being taken over by force, by armed brothers who come from Africa. But we don't do so there. We once went there, we were not like that. We're staying in the camps. Now, I'm merely saying these things because I'm saying this is an opportunity of all of us. White and black, that we put our country at the right place. We've got everything to look after ourselves. And nobody must have a problem with that. Whoever has a problem with that must be brought to Umkhonto wesizwe so that we lecture them, we help them to understand, and that we have got a peaceful South Africa. So sorry, I've taken a lot of time. First time I find you all together. Partly because tomorrow we are going to tell the people of South Africa that here we are in this organization, Umkhonto wesizwe. We want to change South Africa to be a free country that is having everything it needs. We can eat everything and be successful and sell and have money and be a rich country. We actually can. And the first guys to support is my friend, the Africans. We are together with them. They may not, some of them, they may not see the light today, but they're going to see it very soon. Particularly because my brother here is so honest about what he has said, and is not going to change. And that is going to change the Bure to think correct. And you'll realize, too, you know, I was fighting with people on the few things we are going to be saying tomorrow. You know, I've never went to school. I can't read and write. So some writer, and I said, only one line talks about where's written the team? No one can guess.
Khuluma Zuma. Silalela Nxamalala.
Uthi?
Khuluma Nxamalala.
Ngimsiza.
Yebo baba. Kangahloniphi.
Obani abantu bokuqala la eSouth Africa?
Makhoyisana. Makhoyisana. Khoyisana. Khoyisana.
Just one person must say.
Khoyisana.
Exactly.
Which man?
Khoisan. They've not been talked about over centuries. We are talking about them. We are with them. They are going to vote for Umkhonto weSizwe. All of them. They are declared. Because we are just telling the truth as it is. They were the first people, Southern Africa. And they're the ones who suffered most first. We can't forget that. We want everybody who's in South Africa to live here, and you must live comfortably. We are capable of doing so. And this is what we must stand for, and stand for it forever. That is why, comrades, I've had a problem with people who fight for positions, even before we have positions. Because you are pulling us backward. You are putting us backwards. For the first time in my life, I am 28 now, of age, that I have seen people, Christians, black, white, Indian, everything, saying this is the time for us to correct our country. The first time. All what we need to do is to be honest, do the correct things. Everybody will come over us. And there will be no one who will be not have or having a job. If you want to be in government, if you want to be in the private sector, yes. I've been in the private sector, maybe for the first time. I'm going to be.
Abantu, please don't
I'm going to
request.
look for
Don't request.
good, hard business
That's why people are requesting.
Because we are changing the country. And I can tell you, the whole world will love South Africa because we are a good country. And make no mistake, therefore, in 2 weeks' time, let us vote for Umkhonto weSizwe. Umkhonto weSizwe is a solution for our country. Is a solution for our country. There is no for our country. There is no for our country. There is no
umshini wam umshini